You are everything that's wrong with this city!
Huh. I was gonna say the same to you.
After what feels like forever, we finally got to play the first 2 hours of upcoming PS4 exclusive Marvel's Spider-Man. And honestly, it was worth the wait. From what we've seen and played, this is the deep dive experience Spidey fans have been waiting for. And it's the perfect vehicle to open up the wider world of old Webhead to a brand new generation of fans. In addition to playing the game, we also nerded out with its creative director, Insomniac's Brian Intihar, about the challenges and the fun involved with creating such a huge project. So, here are 14 cool new things you really need to know about Marvel's Spider-Man.
You guys alright?
We were just about to call for backup.
I think I'm it.
Lead the way. We'll be right behind you.
Both Insomniac and Marvel feel that Spider-Man is the perfect fit for the developer. A few years ago, Sony came to us with the opportunity to work with this guy, and it's safe to say, with many people in our studio, and with me especially, this has been the opportunity of a lifetime, Intihar told us. We are huge Marvel fans, gigantic Spider-Man fans, and when people ask us why Spider-Man, we say among all the Marvel characters, and perhaps even any character in pop culture you might run into, this character kind of fits the DNA of our studio better than anybody. One of the reasons for this is gadgets. Spider-Man is known for creating his own tech and gadgets, and Insomniac is known through Resistance and Ratchet and Sunset Overdrive for creating a lot of fun weapons and gadgets. So it seems like a perfect marriage, but we'll get more into that in a little bit. Yet it is clear that Insomniac are Spidey nerds from the second you load up the game. The difficulty levels you choose from range from friendly, that's easy, to amazing, normal, to spectacular, that's hard.
Hey, there's my favorite aunt.
In addition to swinging through the city as Spider-Man, you'll also play as both Peter Parker and as Mary Jane. It's a really interesting choice that, in a game that lets you zip through the city and fight bad guys with incredible superpowers, you'll also play at having a normal life and attempt sequences where you seemingly don't do anything spectacular at all. But this was a very conscious decision, says Brian Intihar. There's a pacing to a video game, and I think, of course, we want to show a Spider-Man story and a Peter Parker story. It's hard to be Peter and to play as him, but also, it's a nice change of pace. If you just kept the pedal down the whole time, if every mission was like Fisk Tower, you'd be exhausted by mission 4. So we like that ebb and flow. I think people respond pretty well to it. Well, I definitely agree. After so many great combat moments that open the game, you slow right down and join Peter in his day job as a scientist. There are a bunch of puzzles you can attempt as part of this, solving circuit boards to find a path or get the right amount of voltage flowing through, and matching up different test results to solve other problems in the lab. And this isn't just for story's sake. Doing these puzzles will also help Peter develop equipment to help out his other job.
Now it's you who inspires me.
Meanwhile, playing as MJ is a different experience still. In this version of Spider-Man, she isn't an actress or a club owner, but an emerging investigative journalist for the Daily Bugle. And at certain times during the main story, she has her own unique missions and gameplay mechanics. So we got to play as her sneaking into Rosamund's auction house, which fronts as a legitimate face of Fisk's crime syndicate. A fair bit of it was stealthing around so as not to be spotted, but there was also a pretty cool sequence that played up to her skills as a journalist, where you have to thoroughly search through a room to figure out what secrets it has hidden away. It'll be interesting to see how this gets used later on in the game, and how it can work in tandem with Spider-Man and Peter's perspectives to create a richer story experience.
Meantime.
Can do. Heads up! Hey, where are you going?
And speaking of story, Marvel's Spider-Man is a brand new story written by Insomniac specifically for the game. But it does take inspiration from and contains references to other sources. For example, during our demo, after Spider-Man takes down Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, A masked group known as the Inner Demons makes a move to steal some blueprints from Fisk on behalf of the mysterious Mr. Negative. These blueprints turn out to be for something called Devil's Breath. In Mr. Negative's very first comic book appearance, the Brand New Day arc, he attempts to use the bioweapon Devil's Breath to try and wipe out rival crime families. Mr. Negative eventually obtains some of Spider-Man's blood to strengthen the formula, but Black Cat helps Spider-Man take it back. As a side note, we already know Black Cat will be featured in the game's first piece of DLC content. However, Insomniac will almost certainly change up this arc to suit the story it's trying to tell, but it's fun to guess where they might go and how characters will be adapted for this specific narrative, which we already know will include appearances from the Sinister Six, Kingpin, Silver Sable, and current Mayor of New York City, Norman Osborn, among others. According to Intihar, people often ask Insomniac if they came up with new characters for the game, and he replies, "Why? We don't need to. He's got plenty of characters. We didn't need to create new ones." Just as Batman probably has the best rogues gallery for DC characters, Spider-Man has the best for Marvel. Yeah, I think that's pretty much on the money.
You?
So, this game hasn't skimped on villains, but one of the really interesting things about it is it's included a whole heap of allies for Peter to work with too. Aside from Mary Jane, Spider-Man works closely with the presumably pre-Wraith Yuri Watanabe of the NYPD, who radios Spider-Man in for help on a regular basis. And there's also a young Miles Morales, a 15-year-old Spider-Man fanboy who'll also help Peter out. Intihar also said that Morales does belong to the same universe as Peter in this telling of Spider-Man. He didn't come through some dimensional portal, but literally grew up in the same city. Intihar also told us that this plays into the game's themes of worlds colliding. We'll see that in these two characters and how they interact. A possibly interesting side note here, when we asked about it, Intihar wouldn't comment on whether there had been a Gwen Stacy in this universe.
You're officially an enemy of the people.
Would you look at that?
Let's chat a bit about themes. According to Intihar, there are two big themes in Marvel's Spider-Man: mentorship and partnership. Here's what he had to say about them. "This is not an origins story. That's been done before, many times. This is not another story about 15-year-old Peter Parker taking pictures for the Daily Bugle, getting used to his powers. He's 23 now. He's been Spider-Man for 8 years. He's graduated college, he's pulling double duty as both scientist and superhero, and in many ways, we've been calling this his next coming-of-age story, his journey to becoming a young adult." Two themes really drive the experience, the first being mentorship. We looked for those moments in people's lives we all remember. For me, it's when I graduated high school. What's another big time in your life? That's right when you graduate college. You start to look for work, build a career. Peter is looking for guidance in his job. And for him, for so long for the last 8 years, he has been saving the city as Spider-Man. But through his work and through his mentorship, he finally feels like he can save the world, change the world, for the first time as Peter Parker. So you're going to see mentorship being carried through this entire game. The other big theme is partnership, and that's going to be carried through his on-again, off-again relationship with Mary Jane Watson. Another thing I noticed when I graduated college was my relationships and my friendships evolved. They changed. That's what Peter is going to realize through MJ, is that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to lean on others even if you are a superhero. So the ideas of mentorship and partnership are really going to drive this coming-of-age story.
Yes, we have to stop them.
In addition to these themes, another idea that shaped pretty much every single decision in Marvel's Spider-Man came from something said by Bill Roseman, executive creative director at Marvel Games and huge Spider-Man expert.
Writing your memoirs? Don't forget the hyphen between Spider and Man.
In apparently one of the first meetings he had with Insomniac, he said that the best Spider-Man stories are when Peter's world and Spider-Man's world collide. That, according to Intihar, has literally driven everything Insomniac has done with the game since. For us, he says, for this game to stand out and really feel like a true Spider-Man experience, it has to be as much of a Peter Parker story as it is about Spider-Man. And through the themes of mentorship and partnership, we aim to deliver not only a memorable human story, but also a great superhero journey.
Shouldn't have.
He also said, that's why I think the Marvel movies are so great, because they bring in such a wide audience that you don't need to be the biggest Marvel fan to enjoy them. Because if you look at all the movies, if you strip away the superhero-ness of them, they're still good stories. Like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's my favourite Marvel movie, but if you strip away all the talking raccoons and trees, it's a story about family, and how family can take any form. Or with Black Panther, it's about him learning to be a king. It's a human story at the heart of it, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here. It's definitely a fun superhero journey where you're swinging around and fighting villains, but at the same time, it's a 23-year-old pseudo-young adult who is trying to figure out where his place in life is. So this line of thinking definitely came across in the bit of the game I played. One of the very first things you see is Peter getting out of bed and sniffing his spider suit to see if it's clean enough to wear. Something I think most young adults can probably relate to having done, even if they don't admit it. Peter also gets overdue bills shoved under his door, hammering home the idea that his two lives are constantly in conflict. It's funny, it's relatable, and it's human. That tone was, by far, the hardest thing to nail in the beginning of production, Intihar says. Tone is always a challenge with Spider-Man. It's hard because you want him to be funny, but at the same time you want to raise the stakes and you want to have an emotional story. So you want to find the balance between where does the humor fit right and where does it not get too dark. A lot of people ask, what do you look to?
Do your thing.
The Marvel movies do it really well. Even Infinity War, which is, to all intents and purposes, a pretty dark movie, they do find moments of humor. So that was easily one of the toughest challenges, finding the right tone of the game. Yes, there is moments of humor for sure, but also, I feel like Peter is a very emotional character. He's a very vulnerable character, and we want to show that. So how do you balance raising the stakes, plus finding those moments of levity and humor that are so iconic to the character? It's really tough, and that's easily, in that first year of development, one of the toughest challenges we faced.
Fire. Looks like Fisk has armed men on every floor.
Drawing upon the developers' past experiences, there's a lot of Sunset Overdrive DNA in the open world. According to Intihar, especially in the world building and traversal, we kind of wanted to take the style and fluidity and flow of the traversal of Sunset and then make it a Spider-Man game. Just from a technical and building perspective, having that experience of creating a city was helpful, though now the city is way larger than the one we created because he moves a lot faster. Not to mention, Sunset Overdrive was post-apocalyptic, so there was no traffic, there were no pedestrians, now we have to add all those in there. So it's definitely a technical challenge. But, he continued, I would say combat took longer because we hadn't made a ton of third-person action melee games before. We've done a lot of shooters, third and first person. So that took a while, but it's funny. Once someone said, let's try and make it more like an Insomniac game, everything kind of clicked. We started getting him doing more aerial combat, and we started integrating more of the gadgets. Another thing I got to play around with during the demo was Spider-Man's 3 distinct skill trees, where you can pour your skill points into and acquire new skills as the story progresses. The 3 branches are Defender, Innovator, and Web Slinger, which mainly focus on improving combat, gadgets, and traversal, respectively. Interestingly though, the idea for Spider-Man's suit powers was more or less inspired by the company's history with Ratchet & Clank. Says Intihar, that's how the suit powers came to be. We had this week of meetings where we just started brainstorming. I even told somebody, it was like the president of our company, Ted Price, it was one of the best Ratchet meetings I'd ever been in, because it was just classic, this suit could do this and this gadget could do that. I saw a little bit of how the suit powers worked in my demo, where Peter created this advanced suit, suit, an Insomniac original creation featuring the classic red and blue design with a large white spider on the front. I also saw a couple of the other first suits you can create, which include the Noir suit and the Scarlet Spider outfit. There's a huge list that you can work through and unlock though, and these will be mixed and matched, original creations and Marvel classic designs. And it's important to note, all of these will be unlockable in the main game, as Marvel's Spider-Man will include 0 microtransactions. Another cool detail is that though every suit is different and each one features its own unique power, you can customize these suits further with up to 3 modifications that can stack bonus effects. This upgrading is done through tokens earned by completing other tasks in the game, and there are different types of tokens to earn. So, for example, you earn base tokens by clearing out strongholds held by villains throughout the city, and you earn crime tokens by listening into police radio and stopping various crimes in progress. We stopped a jewelry store robbery and an assault in progress in our playthrough. Intihar also says the type of crime you can intervene upon will change as the story progresses. Crime types that you see early on will be very different to the crime types you see later on, he told us. As the stakes get raised in the city, the crimes get worse. You're going to see new crimes get introduced over the course of the game, and it's the same for the look. The city and the feel of the city is going to be different.
Going down!
It kind of feels like this game will do for Spider-Man what the Arkham games did for Batman. That is, open up the wider Spider-Man world to a much larger audience. That's not just because of its inclusion of lesser-known villains and allies, but its depiction of Spider-Man's stomping grounds, rich with details from the Marvel Universe. For example, one ongoing side quest will have Spidey snapping pictures of notable landmarks in New York City. In the Hell's Kitchen region alone, you can spy Josie's Bar, Fogwell's Gym, Alias Investigations, Fisk Tower, Clinton Mission Shelter, and Madison Square Garden. As Marvel fans will know, these are all iconic locations relating to Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and other New York-based Marvel heroes. Intihar also confirmed that you can track down the offices of Nelson and Murdoch, attorneys at law. Another cool little detail for Daredevil fans in particular, the composer for the Daredevil Netflix series is also providing the music for this game. Wonder if there's any chance Matt Murdock could show up in a more physical way at some point during the game's many side quests. The game's version of New York is seriously huge, featuring 8 districts for Spidey to swing his way through, and you won't have to wait long to do it either. After the first mission, the entire city is open to you. You can check out each of the 8 different districts, Intihar says. You're going to be able to swing by and see familiar NYC landmarks like Grand Central Terminal, but at the same time, this is Marvel New York, so you'll see things like Avengers Tower. It's not a 1-to-1 scale replica, because at the end of the day, it's a video game. We wanted it to be fun to swing around, so some buildings are taller than they really are. Intihar continued, I'm actually from Connecticut originally. It's like 2 hours outside New York City. But as a child growing up, I had an idea of what New York was based on pictures, based on what I heard, based on movies, TV shows. That was the New York we kind of went for, the one you have in your head. And honestly, this New York is a joy to swing around. Swinging. It's a big deal in a Spider-Man game, and Insomniac says it's by far the thing they get asked most about and the thing they see talked about most online.
Oh, wow.
We know the number one thing we have to get right in a Spider-Man game, says Intihar. There's nothing more important. It's the debate I read on Reddit every single day. The truth is, we're always making improvements. Even since E3, we've been making improvements. For us, we really wanted to strike that balance between a pick-up-and-play nature. We want you to feel like Spider-Man right away, but hopefully, it's deep enough that players will feel there's a level of mastery. And we've also started adding elements like parkour. I hope players judge it when they actually play it. There have been a lot of Spider-Man games. We don't want to shy away from that. Spider-Man 2 was a great game, but we're also doing what feels right for us. And I think that one thing we really want to do with swinging is that you're not struggling with it right away. For me, it definitely feels like there's a level of mastery to swinging. Though traversal is at its most basic level, just about using R2 to web sling through the city, there's definitely a technique to making it look and feel incredible. You can press X to jump and zip forward, especially useful in areas that are more horizontal like Central Park, and you can launch yourself into the air, do some amazing looking acrobatics, and at the very apex of your jump, zip and launch yourself off again. It honestly feels thrilling. And then there are little things that you can do like lean in different directions to swing more casually around buildings and hold R2 to run right up the side of a skyscraper. We're looking forward to seeing what else we can do with it to make us look as cool as physically possible. This all extends to combat as well. Of course, there are parallels to be made to Rocksteady's Batman games, but there is a different energy at play with Spider-Man's take on things too. We really want players to feel like he is a master of improvisation, says Intihar. You're going to be able to combine melee with webs, environmental interaction, stealth, and gadgets. There's a lot of player choice, and once you start to gain new abilities and really start to understand all the different tricks, you're hopefully going to do a lot of experimentation, a lot of sandbox gameplay, and at the end of the day, fight with a lot of style. As I played, I felt the sandbox nature of the game took over more. I could punch a guy in the air and just let him fall. Or I could punch a guy in the air and then go up there with him and punch him. Or I could punch him in the air, then grab him and slam him down. But then I was like, what if I punch him up in the air and then try to juggle him with my webs? And you can do that. And then pull him down, he's covered in web, and he's stuck to the ground. You can feel powerful right away, in other words. But the more you experiment and try things out, the more you can do.
We'll get ready for the main event. Incoming!
That's a lot to take in, I know, but what do you think? Will you be picking this up? Are there any other heroes and or villains that you're hoping will be included? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe and stay tuned for more Spider-Man stuff coming to Eurogamer very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye!
What? Is it National Rocket Day or something?